Okay. Hello, everybody. This is Ahmed Tharod again, and on Friday, this is Sunday, the 14th, and I know you all been following the South African genocidal case or genocide case against Israel. It has been going on, started a couple of days ago, and I think it is, the first initial oral argument has concluded, and as you can see. The case is very solid and full of evidence and using the evidence of the Israelis officials themselves, what they say and what they have done. This is amount to genocide, closing the border, making life for Palestinian unliable, and right intentionally to eliminate the livelihood of the Palestinians. As you can see, the legal team of the Israelis legal team is trying to make a case that this is not amounting to genocide and self-defense, and there was no intent to eliminate the Palestinian. But when you bomb, more bombs than Hiroshima and what happened in World War II on a small enclave of 3 million people, there is an intent there. And there is a 50,000 pound of a bomb, or there is an intent there to kill a lot of people, a lot of civilian, a lot of non-combatants. So I know what's gonna come up out of this, but we have our guest today, Sanna Town. She's a Palestinian solidarity activist. She's been following the case, and she's been with us before, and she is really engaged with what's going on in Gaza, what's going on in Palestine, and she can see the racism and how the world has been treating what has been going on in Gaza now and Palestinian in general as a racist attitude of the West toward the Palestinian. Welcome to Bil Ahdan, Sana. This is a Sunday, and I appreciate that you give us the time. Talk to us a little bit about the racist element of how America is really, and the West in general, approaching the conflict between Israel and Palestinians in general, and specifically in this case that South Africa is raising now at the International Court of Justice.
Okay, thank you, Ahmed, for inviting me. Um, this is a historic time in many ways. Unfortunately, uh, the world's attention certainly has been drawn to the genocide that's taking place in Gaza. Uh, I I say it's historic in one very important way, is that for the first time, the world is truly paying attention to the Palestinian reality. And, uh, and Palestinians have become central to the story of Palestine, Israel. And that's very, very important. I am overwhelmed with appreciation for the application that South Africa presented before the International Court of Justice. It's an extraordinary document. I suggest that others read it. It presents not only the besides presenting the case for spelling out genocide taking place, it gives a extraordinary history of what Palestinians in Gaza have been going through, but also Palestinians on the West Bank. So we get the Palestinian story going all the way back to 1947, 48. Uh, and then at the same time, within this document, the South Africans spell out how they look at the uh, terminology, the definition of genocide, and spell out how the Israelis have committed these various aspects of genocide that we find in the document. And then what's really extraordinary is there are 6 pages of all of the ways in which Israeli leadership has presented intent to eliminate Palestinians. And I guess what is most disturbing is the Western nation leadership of Western nations, and especially leadership of our nation, the Biden administration, Biden, Blinken, Austin, Linda Thomas Greenfield, and others within the Biden administration. How, especially from Biden and Blinken and John Kirby, the quick response was that the South African document in presentation was meritless. And as I think I read a piece by Jeremy Scahill in the Intercept, where he says, here we go, it's like the talking points.
Mhm.
And
Well,
in many ways, too, it was, let me just say this, it was insulting to the South Africans. That response was indeed insulting.
It was insulting to us all. I mean,
To all of us,
anybody
to
has a
all of us.
sense.
Exactly.
I mean,
But
anybody has sense of human rights and see the what's happening in the last 3 months of
Mhm.
destruction, damaging hospitals, schools,
Yeah,
the water system, everything.
everything.
Also, what I like about the South Africans document, they are using the same the Israelis official same rhetorics. We're gonna eliminate those animals. We're gonna eliminate Gaza, and they invoke this Old Testament,
Amalek. Yeah.
Amalek, and spare no one, children suckling, and all of that. This is all happening, and
Mhm.
they just look the other way,
Yeah,
and the intent
exactly.
was there.
So you see, this is in many ways the first time that Israel is being held accountable before on the world stage,
Isn't it
because in
amazing?
the past it has done what it's wanted to do. It's gotten away with killing Palestinians, slaughtering Palestinians for years. This is not the first time. We know all of the different times that Israel has bombarded Gaza.
Isn't
Uh,
it the
People of
Zionist?
Gaza have suffered so badly, so horribly.
Isn't it Zionism itself, the racist ideology of Zionism? It's the intent is there to eliminate the non-Jewish population from the Zionist project. Isn't it that the
Well,
intent?
yeah, if you look at the beginning of the Zionist movement in the 1880s,
Yeah, before
it was
even
very
Balfour.
clear.
Balfour.
Yeah, it was very clear that the goal was to eliminate the indigenous
It
population.
was
Yeah.
95% population of
Mhm.
non-Jewish, Arab and Muslim.
Exactly.
Yeah,
When European Jews started migrating to historic Palestine in the 1920s, we began to see ways in which they forced uh, Palestinians, as you said, made up 90% of the population. They owned 90% of the land, started forcing them off of the land.
and this is
And
not
so, and this has
true.
been consistent. And, what's so interesting is that we, uh, the most interesting thing is that historians are bringing out more and more information about the kinds of massacres that have taken place against Palestinians over many decades, over many decades. So, yeah, No. And so what we're seeing today is the dream, I guess, of many Zionists,
Yeah,
sure.
yeah, I
And
see.
this is unfortunate, you know. It really is. And I guess what disturbs me the most is that I I'm concerned about the Israeli psyche, a nation that is able to accept, ignore, and they've dehumanized Palestinians so much that there is no empathy for what Palestinians are
That's a
going through.
very, very interesting point, Sanna.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
interesting
the
about
indoctrination starts early
exactly,
with the
exactly.
children. Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. So talking to them, they don't look at you as a full human. They don't they accept what their military is doing. The
Exactly.
majority of Israelis now forget about peace movement, forget about
Mhm.
right, left, women's movement, gay movement, whatever. They all on board,
Mhm.
supporting the genocide. But what is so interesting about the South African case? Here is a country that suffered apartheid for many years, and was
Mhm.
supported by the West.
Mhm.
And Israel was the chief provider of armies to the apartheid white regime that was
Mhm.
banned by international community. Israel was providing that regime illegally doing the dirty work for the Americans,
Mhm.
providing because the American cannot, was banned and been in trouble. So Israel was supporting the apartheid regime in South
Mhm.
Africa for years, was the last country to accept that.
Mhm.
Now South Africa is the one taking the apartheid Israel to court.
Mhm.
Isn't it
Mhm.
the irony of all of this and gives you hope?
And I can't think of any other country that could have done such an effective job as the South Africans in bringing. They were supposed to do this. This was the and South Africans will say this. This was their duty. They constantly talked about Nelson Mandela, and in a sense, they understand that this is what Nelson Mandela would have wanted them to do. So yes,
And
they they they
The president of South Africa said, "I've never been proud. South Africa
exactly.
never been proud of that
Yeah,
moment, not even
yeah.
after the eliminating of apartheid of the whites." But talked about the race issue here. I've always thought the Palestinians
Mhm.
are the blacks. They've been treated the same way by the white colonial Zionists, the same way the whites, the blacks, been treated here in this country. Where is
Yeah,
the connection?
before I mentioned that, a few minutes ago, I talked about my concern about the Israeli psyche. And I think one of the things that we have to accept, and I certainly do, is that for many Israeli Jews, there is historic trauma. And I think that that reaction, the way they've reacted, and in many ways, I just wish there were that the government could could do could really speak to the trauma, not in terms of being violent against another people, but really being uh, working at how do we work through historic trauma. African Americans have lived today with historic trauma. Native Americans live today with historic trauma. Many groups of people live today with historic trauma. But how do you get beyond that? And clearly, Palestinians are living today with historic trauma. And so, but I'm concerned that that's not being dealt with in Israel. Now, when you asked me about the racism, one of the things that I have felt, And we've seen such tremendous backlash, especially since October 7th, against individuals within this country, Palestinian Americans, individuals who are supportive of Palestinians. The minute many of us come out and speak critical of Israel, we are immediately described as being anti-Semitic. And the unfortunate thing is that the Palestinian, when I say anti-Palestinian racism, it's as if the presence of Palestinians, the reality of Palestinians, the history of Palestinians is considered unacceptable in many in our society right here in the U.S. People don't want to hear that story. And so that kind of response to Palestinians is in many ways a type of racism. And I call it anti-Palestinian racism. We even, when I read the New York Times, some of mainstream media, they might describe Islamophobia, but the problem is they're not really getting to the real issue. This is specifically a response to the Palestinian story, the Palestinian reality. And so we need to call it what it is. And so my thing is to always refer to when I see anti-Palestinian racism, that's the way I refer. In fact, if you don't mind, I wanted to give you a quick definition that I came across, a quick description by an organization from Canada, which is called, they talk about anti-Palestinian racism in Canada, and it's the Canadian, oh goodness, Canadians for Justice and Peace in the Middle East. And so I'm trying to find the description. And I'm having trouble finding it right here, but maybe I can come up with that description because I think it's something that we all need to be aware of what it really is. But I'm having difficulty. But anyway,
paraphrase it if you want.
Excuse me?
You can paraphrase it. What does it say?
Yeah, I don't want to. Okay, I don't want to misrepresent what is being said.
People can go back to it.
So what they say, it's a widespread problem in Canada and of course right here in the United States. And they provide examples. In fact, what they indicate is that there are hundreds of examples of this type of racism that we see. And many times it's related to the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance working definition of anti-Semitism. And of course, many times within that definition by the IHRA, it makes it very clear that any criticism of Israel can be considered anti-Semitic. So obviously, if you're trying to tell the Palestinian story, you will be talking about Zionism and the role of Zionism in not allowing you to have dignity and equality and freedom in your life. And so,
it's ironic because Palestinian, they are Semitic themselves. I mean, the Arabs are part of the Semitic.
Yeah.
So it's really a kind of an upside world that we live now, and it seems like the people in power can define anything, and they can control the narrative. And the people in power and brown people don't have the chance to write their story, to have a narrative. And I think South African genocide case, it's just giving the people in the South a platform that people can see this is actually a genocide. This is actually a kind of an ethnic cleansing by the Zionist project. This is a European colonial project.
Mhm.
And this is all new for a lot of Americans and a lot of
Mhm.
people in the
Mhm.
West.
Oh, yes, definitely. And people want to know, people want to understand what's happening. Unfortunately, we have mainstream media that has not been very helpful in providing people with the information that they need so that they can understand the situation. But yeah, um, I think what we when I talk about anti-Palestinian racism and just bigotry and discrimination, we see it in terms of various college campuses where Student for Justice for Palestine, a Jewish Voice for Peace, those organizations that have come out and spoken out in support of
Well,
Palestinians
look what
and have
happened.
been critical of Israel.
Look what
Uh,
happened to the president of Harvard. This is the biggest high. This is where the people who are
exactly.
going to run the world graduated. This is are the people who really control the narrative. And
Mhm.
she didn't even criticize Israel. She just allowed the pro-Palestinians to have. And I know we only have 1 minute here.
Uh-huh.
I want to end it with, where did you get your earring? This is a beautiful earring.
Oh, you see my Palestinian, yeah, this is the map of Palestine. And
The whole thing, you're gonna get in trouble now.
why? Because I'm wearing,
Now you are anti-Semitic. You know you want to eliminate the Jew from Palestine. Once you say
no,
from the river to the
Jews,
sea,
they're indigenous too. I'm not eliminating them. They just have to understand that there's another group of people too that's indigenous.
there
And
is one for each group on each ear here.
right, well, I'm all for everybody being treated equally and fairly and justly.
What,
That's where I stand.
what a concept. Sanna Town, she is a Palestinian solidarity activist. We talked to her before. She
Mhm.
is been following what's going on, the conflict for a long, long time, and she is interested in a relationship between, the experience of Black Americans here, racism, and also what's happening to Palestinian in Israel. There is also another form of racism, and we should call it the way it is. Thank you so much, Sana. Thank you for giving me the time, and we'll continue with this conversation.
Okay. Thank you so much for
Thank,
inviting me.
thank you. And then I will say
Uh,
salam now.
Okay.